If you love stuffing your face with sweets, you could find yourself in much worse places than Japan. Of course, there are the traditional treats. Hey, these aren't just power-ups in Ganbare Goemon, you know. But Western-style chocolates, cakes, and candies make up a vast majority of the country sweets on offer. So many Japanese confectionery companies with rich histories provide even richer sugar-loaded junk food that is sure to satisfy anyone's sweet tooth. Meiji has been around for over a century and produces classic snacks such as Kinoko no Yama and Takenoko no Sato, as well as what may be the nation's best-selling chocolate bar. The Korean-owned and operated Latte, actually founded in post-war Tokyo, produces its own popular chocolate bars such as Crunky, gotta love that name, but is most well known in East Asia for its delicious choco pies. And aside from being associated with one of Osaka's most famous landmarks, Glico is behind Bisco, a childhood favorite among Japanese, though the company is no doubt worshipped by weebs all over the world for their widely successful chocolate-covered biscuit sticks known as Pocky. However, among these junk food giants is a name perhaps more synonymous with sweets in Japan than any other: Morinaga. A company with a history dating back to the very end of the 19th century, Morinaga produces just about any sugary delight you could imagine. Cookies, caramels, snack cakes, pudding, ice cream, chocolate, stars. They are world-renowned for their fruity Haichu taffy candies, which are so good. Though I think their most iconic line of treats comes in the form of choco balls, chocolate-dipped peanuts represented by the lovable mascot Kyoro-chan, who is also a major figure in Japanese pop culture. Okay, but what does all this talk of sweets have to do with video games, you might ask? Well, in the 1980s, rather than using their established mascots like Kyoro-chan or even the little angel found in their corporate logo, Morinaga introduced a new character in Japan to promote their chocolates, gummies, ice cream, and the brand in general. The new mascot proved to be a hit, so much so that in the early 90s he would star in his very own video game. This character? Noobow. And the game? Noobow. Published for the Nintendo Game Boy on December 11, 1992, Noobow is probably the sweetest game you'll ever play on the handheld, which is very fitting for a candy company's mascot. And it's really well made too, which should be no surprise since it was published by IREM, a company with an excellent track record for putting out exceptional video games. At its core, Noobow is an action-adventure puzzle game where the titular character overcomes obstacles and helps others by interacting with the environment and using objects in a variety of ways. There are no bad guys to take out, no weapons or power-ups, there's no violence whatsoever. Noobow accomplishes his goals through hard work, resourcefulness, and just being an overall positive force in the world. For fans of traditional video games, that may sound kind of boring and maybe even a little lame, but Noobow crafts a charming experience that is an absolute joy to play from beginning to end. Before we dive into the game further, let's take a minute to explore just who Noobow is first. As alluded to earlier, this yellow, smiling, thing was used to promote Morinaga snacks in the 80s and 90s, and his name and image were slapped onto several of the company's new candy lines, most popular of which were the Air Choco chocolate bars. During this time period, he also made appearances in quite a few television commercials, many alongside the now notorious Japanese musician and entertainer Masashi Tashiro. Noobow was also a merchandising machine with its own production company, which manufactured and sold tons of Noobow licensed goods. The little guy even starred in his own anime OVA. As far as the character's personality, I think the back covers of the Enjoy English with Noobow book series sums it up simply and quite nicely. His body is soft and light. He is somehow happy all the time. He makes everyone around him feel comfortable. How sweet. So now that we know more than we ever needed to about a Japanese candy company's obscure mascot character from the past, let's at last take a closer look at the fluffy yellow bundle of joy's adventure on the Game Boy. It all starts after Noobow awakens to find himself mysteriously stranded on a desert island, and it's your job as a player to ensure he finds his way home. Pressing left and right on the D-pad moves Noobow, and a quick inspection of the area rules out swimming since a shark inhabits the waters surrounding the island. Thankfully, a boat is lying in the sand, which can be picked up with the A button and placed on Noobow's head as he moves around. Walking to the rightmost edge of the island and pressing A again will place the boat in the water, allowing safe passage to lands beyond the sea. Once on the mainland, a block obstructs the way, but Noobow can easily climb over it. What he can't climb over, however, is the hill right past it. He's just a bit too short. Picking up the block and setting it at the base of the hill gives Noobow the extra height he needs to make the climb, however. Just past this small hill is a taller hill, but stacking up the 2 blocks nearby to create a stairway will allow Noobow to get to the top. The next pitfall is a literal pitfall, and unfortunately Noobow isn't much of a jumper. But again, thanks to some conveniently placed blocks, he can fill in the gap and safely walk across to reach the ladder ahead, which he can go up by pressing up on the D-pad. Here he'll find a pogo stick, and by pressing the A button he uses it to bounce around, which comes in handy soon since he'll need to jump up and over another pit and some platforms. After it's served its purpose, the pogo stick disappears, which happens with many other items in the game. Making his way through the upper area, Noobow encounters an angry dog, but he won't bite, just bark and block the path forward. Picking up a nearby stick and throwing it over the dog's head takes care of the mud. Just beyond is a dead end and a great fall. Geez, I hope that dog is alright. The sign warns of danger and it looks like there's no way to proceed further, but because Noobow is so light and fluffy, he's able to pick up the cloth next to the sign and use it to descend slowly and safely down the side of the cliff. Once at the bottom, there's another stick. Oh god, is it the same one he threw earlier? I really hope that dog's alright. As well as a bucket. Well, buckets are quite useful, so he picks that one up and continues along the path. In this area there's a baby whale just floating in the middle of a pool, but it's too tall for Noobow to climb onto, and he can't use the bucket to stand on. There is a small opening on the pool's left side though, just big enough for that stick from earlier to fit in and create a step, so Noobow heads back to pick it up. Only one item can be carried at a time, so pressing B drops the bucket. Inserting the stick into the pool hole makes the climb possible, and Noobow can walk right over the baby whale to advance. Remember, Noobow is light so he does no harm to the whale, though I'm still unsure of the fate of that dog. Just past here is a school of whales, so it seems like the little one from earlier has been separated from its family. Noobow heads back to pick up the bucket to transport the whale, but scooping up the little guy too soon presents a new problem, erasing a path across the pool. I guess swimming is another thing Noobow can't do. Dropping him back into the water and picking him up on the other end means Noobow can reunite the whales. As an act of gratitude, the largest of these whales shoots him up into the air through its blowhole, propelling Noobow to the next land and inching him ever closer to home. Obviously the short level serves as a tutorial, and from here on out is where the real game begins. While progression in Noobow is mostly linear, the player is allowed some degree of freedom of exploration. There are many items that Noobow will find and use throughout his adventure, and while there is only ever one correct solution to the puzzles and obstacles he'll encounter, there are some really clever ways in which he utilizes those items that are sure to put a smile on the player's face. As stated earlier, there's no violence whatsoever in this game, well maybe with the exception of that dog. And while he'll be put in some dangerous situations along the way, Noobow can never die, because he'll stop himself before any bad accidents can occur. There are a few instances where he can get stuck, however, particularly when working with block puzzles. Moving between screens will reset blocks that have not been set correctly to their original state, but if you find yourself completely trapped, you'll have to press start and select to restart the stage from scratch. And on the offhand chance that you're just lost and don't know where you should go next, you can press the select button and an arrow will point you in the general direction you need to head. After saving the young whale, Noobow has a choice of going to 3 stages that take place in 3 different lands, each consisting of 2 areas. These stages are titled the Squirrel Stage, the Mole Stage, and the Bird Stage, and you can play them in any order you like with no consequence to the overall game. As stated earlier, Noobow is all about helping others, and that's exactly what his goal is in each area. The land of the squirrels is usually a warm place, but when Noobow arrives it's freezing cold for some reason. The squirrels dwell high above the ground on floating patches of land and travel using pulley systems, which Noobow gets to use, sometimes through acorn bribery. It turns out that the playful god of the northern winds has been blowing cold air from his magic bag toward the squirrels as a prank, so Noobow must find a way to make him stop and restore warmth to the land. Lately the moles have been hot and sweaty, mainly because their showers no longer function. It's up to Noobow to head deep underground, fix the pipes, and restore the flow of water to the showers up on the surface. To do this, he'll have to navigate subterranean mazes and even shrink himself down to fit in the more narrow tunnels from time to time. And in the land of the birds, Noobow is tasked with helping one of its citizens find the scattered parts to his helicopter after a crash landing. Once restored, Noobow gets to ride in the helicopter until he runs into a squabbling sun and typhoon. He travels through the clouds in order to find a way to make peace between the two, and it turns out the sun just needed a little bit of water to cool his temper, provided by the typhoon of all things. Completing these 3 stages unlocks the final stage in Noobow, where the cheerful protagonist meets the one person who is perhaps even more full of cheer than him, jolly old Saint Nick, Santa Claus. He rests on top of a giant Christmas tree above the clouds and asks Noobow to help him collect 8 presents he's mistakenly dropped below. This level makes use of all the tricks learned previously, and each time a present is found, one of Santa's little angel helpers will fly down and take it back to the sleigh, giving access to a new area for Noobow to continue his search. Once all the presents have been accounted for, Santa offers the helpful hero a ride home on his sleigh, bringing the journey to an end at last. During the trip, Noobow falls asleep as all the fun and adventure of the day has taken quite the toll. As he wakes up, he wonders if it had all been a dream, but is delighted to find himself at home surrounded by familiar, smiling faces, with an enormous gift just waiting to be opened. Unfortunately, this is indeed where the game ends, and there's no credits, just a still screen of the happy reunion. Noobow can be easily beaten in one sitting and in just under an hour for first-time players, though passwords are provided in between each level in case you need to pick up where you left off at a later time. You can also press start at any time during the game to see your current password in case you missed it. Because this title was meant to appeal to younger demographics, it doesn't provide the sort of challenge other similar action puzzle games do, which is unfortunate, but that also means just about anyone can play it. And while it's simple in both its design and looks, it manages to be engaging and attractive at the same time. The animations in particular are really well done, and every movement Noobow makes somehow seems in step to the whimsical music being played. Noobow's visual style is a perfect fit for the monochromatic screen of the original Game Boy, and playing it on a Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance makes the game look even better, as the limited color palette applied suits the game well. Since Noobow was released a couple of years before the Super Game Boy, it doesn't benefit from any special features when using the device, but it does look and play fine on the peripheral. Judge for yourself, I used the Super Game Boy 2 to record footage for this video. There are no noteworthy extras in Noobow other than level select and sound test passwords, so replay value is extremely limited, but it's the kind of game you'll probably want to pick up and play sometimes when you're stressed, in a bad mood, or just need to wind down. And really, everybody could use that sometimes. By some miracle, there is an English fan translation for the game available to download online, but it's only really necessary for non-Japanese readers who want to enjoy the story, since there is no language barrier related to gameplay. There's not much story either, and I'm sure there's less text in the entire game than you'd find in one chapter of a young adult novel. If you want a physical cartridge to play on the go, however, a loose one can be found for relatively cheap, but for those looking for a complete copy, expect to save up quite a bit. I do highly recommend playing Noobow at least once, no matter the means. Who knew a game based on a chocolate bar character could be so good? It's a wonderful, well-crafted game that oozes quality, hampered only by its short length, lack of replay value, and how easy it is to beat. But the experience is surely worth whatever investment you have to make, and I'll be damned if you don't feel all warm and fuzzy inside as you play. Well, that's Noobow in a nutshell. The game, anyway. Although it uses a Morinaga mascot character, within the game there's really nothing tied to the company at all. The closest I could find was that the whales in the tutorial stage bear a striking resemblance to Totomaru, mascot for the company's Ototo Crackers, and the angel helpers in the Santa stage could perhaps be a nod to the company's logo character, but those just might be coincidences. Noobow on the Game Boy never got any sort of sequel, and as far as I know the game engine was never recycled for anything else, which is a shame. And of course, the game remained Japan only. As far as what became of Noobow the character, sadly, his star has faded in recent years, as his candy lines have all been discontinued for quite some time now. He does have a small cult following of fans, and is used by Morinaga once in a while for promotional purposes and events, though it seems the last really big thing for the character took place in 2011 by using him on packaging, and with the Noobow Echo and Smile project, which was a campaign aimed towards children with the goal of putting smiles on faces and teaching about the environment through entertainment and cultivating flowers. And there's a real chance Noobow could make a comeback, since Morinaga still has a dedicated place for the Yellow Blob on their official website, where you can learn more about the character, download stuff like wallpapers and coloring sheets, watch some cute animated shorts, and of course, buy Noobow merch. While Noobow may not be as visible in Japanese pop culture today as he once was in previous decades, the aforementioned Kyoto-chan remains one of the nation's most recognizable and beloved mascots. And once upon a time, he too was a video game star, multiple times at that. Not to be outdone by Noobow, he even had a couple of outings on the Game Boy, though in 1999 a Kyoto-chan 2D platformer for the PS1 came out, which could be considered a real hidden gem. If this is news to you, find out all about it by watching the Ultra Healthy Video Game Nerds review. Go check it out! Well, that concludes another episode of Import Gaming for the Win, from someone who may just be the ultra unhealthy video game nerd, judging from all the junk food I bought for the video. But that might also mean I'm just a plain old regular nerd. Anyway, this is Jimmy Hapa, hoping we follow Noobow's example and try to help each other out more in times of need. I'll certainly try my best. Take care. Oh man, look at all this junk food. Time to get fat.